Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. This programme is all about believers in Jesus who live in Israel and the West Bank, both Jews and Arabs and Palestinians. Live in Israel and you are immediately aware of the Sabbath. Religious or not, Israelis value the Sabbath as a day of rest. So when I saw a book in Jerusalem called Practicing the Sabbath with Community, I was intrigued to meet its author, Daniel Goldstein. We met at the Bible Society bookshop in Jaffa Street, Jerusalem, where Daniel works. He was born into a Jewish family in America and came to live in Israel in 2007. I started by asking him why he decided to leave a comfortable life in the US for the challenges of living in Israel.
Well, when I became a believer, the love for Israel really was birthed in my heart, and I just had a huge draw to come here. I studied here my last semester of college, and thought about making Aliyah, becoming a citizen at that point, but wasn't quite ready. And it was 10 years later, in 2005, that God was basically telling me to come. It was very clear to come, so that's why I made Aliyah.
And did you come straight to Jerusalem to live?
No, I did not. I lived in Haifa for a year, and then I lived on a kibbutz for a year, and then afterwards I came to Jerusalem. I've been living in Jerusalem for almost 4 years now.
And what brought you to work for the Bible Society?
I worked for a magazine for a couple of years here in Jerusalem, and I felt like it was time to move on. And actually one of the leaders in the congregation that I attend mentioned that they were looking for someone here at the Bible Society. I came and talked with my boss here, who's now my boss, and it seemed like a great fit, seemed like a great opportunity, seemed like a great organization, and I really agreed with what they were doing here in Israel. So.
Now you're based on the Jaffa Road, Jaffa Street, and of course it's a very, very busy street. You've got windows full of books, Bibles, material, Messianic Jewish material. Do you get a lot of people coming in here?
Yes, we do. It is a very strategic location in the city. It's right next to the old city, kind of the line between the old city and the new city. A lot of tourists, a lot of Israelis, secular and religious, and as a result, we have people from all walks of life coming in, and we have a lot of opportunity here to explain to people who we are, what we believe, and the perspective of Jesus, Yeshua, and to offer that to the people the New Testament if they want it.
But I want to talk to you about a book that you have written, because it's called
Practicing the Sabbath with Community.
It's about the Sabbath. You therefore believe that it's very relevant for today. Now, the word community is in there. So do you live as part of a Messianic community yourself?
Yes, I would. I'm part of a congregation here in Jerusalem, and also part of a community of friends, believers in the land. And we generally meet together on the Sabbath once a week on Friday nights.
Is there a sense that you're trying to explore what you believe and live it out in an appropriate way?
Definitely, yeah. I would say you're 100% correct in that, in coming back to Israel in 2007, I actually lived with religious Jews for most of my first 2 years. And I saw a lot of beautiful things that were being lived out in their lifestyle that was very attractive to me. And I felt like it was missing in a lot of the believing community, whether it's in America or here. And I feel like sometimes believers will throw out the traditional aspects to the faith, thinking that it's old and we shouldn't be part of that. But I think there's some beautiful things within tradition that we need to honor and practice, and that's how even I came to write this book on the Sabbath, was through that understanding.
I'm particularly interested because you haven't just written it for a Messianic Jewish audience, you've written it for the wider Christian audience too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Jews obviously already understand the Sabbath principle, and Messianic Jews generally have their own belief about it, whether they keep a Sabbath day or not. But growing up in America, as I did, I saw a lot of Christians that used to have a day of rest on Sunday, but it has become lost in the busyness of culture and in the 7-day week that is just becoming nonstop, 24/7. And I really felt like Christians, whether in Europe, America, around the world, they need to understand that God has given the Sabbath for man to take a weekly day of rest and enjoy Him, enjoy relationships, and hear from Him. And so I think the Sabbath principle is still very valid, and Christians need to take another look at it.
You say it was a principle that was established when the world was created, even before the law was given to Moses. Mm-hmm. So therefore it is relevant to everybody.
Yeah, I really believe it's just part of nature, of creation. It's a principle that precedes the law, as you mentioned, and it's something that we can fight against if we want, but it's like fighting against gravity. It's always going to be there, and those who want to work 7 days a week are going to wear themselves out. God has created us to rest 1 day a week, just like He did.
So can I be very personal and ask you how you celebrate the Sabbath every week? When does it begin for you?
Yeah, well, the actual day of the Sabbath, here in Israel, it's Friday night till Saturday evening. And, it's basically a 24, 25-hour period. But as I mentioned in my book, the Sabbath really dictates how you spend your week. You spend your week working. You spend your free time, preparing for meals. And the Sabbath is the big meal of the week on Friday evening. And so generally, I'll spend my Wednesday evening going to the market, buying food. I spend my mornings and evenings reading the weekly Torah portion, the section of the Bible that it is to be studied that week and talked about during the Sabbath meal, inviting friends. And most of Thursday night and Friday, if I'm hosting at my house, will be spent preparing food, preparing songs, preparing a spiritual topic to talk about on Friday night. And so really the whole week kind of leads up to the Sabbath, and then there is a big celebration on Friday night. It usually starts around 6 o'clock in the evening with songs and with worship and with blessings with my friends around the table. We have a big meal, and it's a good 5 or 6 hours together of just celebration and hearing about each other's week, talking about the Word of God. And for the next day, the Sabbath, you have the Erev Shabbat, which is Friday night, and then the Sabbath day, which is on Saturday. It's different things for different people. It can be just a day of rest, reading a book, whatever, going for a walk in the park. A lot of the congregations here in Israel meet on the Sabbath as well. So whether it's on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. And that's basically how the Sabbath day is spent.
Have you found it difficult to ring-fence that time and remember the Sabbath in this way?
Have I personally found it difficult?
Are there a lot of pressures on you to do other things?
On me, I would say not too much. Living in Israel, it's the culture here supports it, so it's a bit easier. But living in America or living in different places, I also lived in another country in the Middle East for a while, which wasn't Sabbath-oriented. And so definitely living outside of Israel, it's more of a struggle. You have to fight for it, and it's something I bring up in my book, that it's something that you really need to agree with in community, whether it's a family, friends, a believing community, whatever it may be. You need to have some kind of guidelines that will help protect that time. Otherwise, it's easy to get lost in this 24/7 world.
And what have you found to be the benefits?
I think it's several things. One is having the weekly day of rest, which we all need, just being restored physically. A second thing is community with people, because without that regular meeting time and speaking into each other's lives, I think we have a part of us that's missing. But being able to really just have undistracted time with each other, speaking to each other's life, hearing what we're going through, and not having the pressure of phone calls and work the next day or any other distractions in life. It's really a blessing to be able to be part of each other's life in that community.
Daniel Goldstein talking about his book, Practicing the Sabbath with Community. You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you would like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either visit our website, olivetreefund.org, or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, PO Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.